Imagine television without Friends. It's almost impossible, right? For 10 seasons, 6 people became America's best friends. But what most fans don't know is that the show we loved almost looked very different. Several actors nearly left, contracts were torn up, and behind those iconic purple walls, tensions sometimes ran higher than the laugh track suggested. So what really happened? Let's find out. A coffee shop story that changed everything. Before we dive into the exits and near exits, let's rewind to 1994. Friends wasn't always called Friends. The original pitch? Insomnia Café. The concept was simple. 6 friends in their 20s, trying to figure out life in New York City. Creators David Crane and Marta Kauffman had a vision, a true ensemble show where no single character would dominate. NBC took a chance, and on September 1994, the pilot aired. The reception was immediate. Within weeks, the Rachel haircut became a phenomenon, and Central Perk became more famous than most real cafes. But success brought pressure, and pressure revealed cracks. The cast had signed modest contracts for the first season, standard for unknown actors. But as Friends exploded into a ratings juggernaut, everything changed. Suddenly, these 6 relatively unknown performers were recognized everywhere. Magazine covers, award shows, paparazzi. And that's when the real drama began, not on screen, but in contract negotiations, personal struggles, and the relentless grind of being on one of the most watched shows on television. The cast that almost wasn't. Here's a shocking fact. Nearly every main cast member considered leaving at some point. Some came incredibly close. Others were talked back from the edge, and while no one actually left permanently, the near misses shaped the show in ways fans never knew. Let's start with the most surprising story of all. David Schwimmer, the one who almost said no. David Schwimmer was the first actor cast. Ross Geller wasn't just his character, the role was practically written for him. Creators had worked with David before and knew his timing, his vulnerability, his comedic brilliance. But here's the twist. David almost didn't take the job. After years of struggling in Hollywood, dealing with rejection and near misses, David was exhausted with the industry. He'd moved to Chicago, started a theater company, and was seriously considering leaving acting altogether. When the Friends offer came, his first instinct was to decline. In interviews, David later admitted, "I was burned out. I didn't want to do another pilot that would get canceled." He'd been through it before: failed shows, broken promises. Why would Friends be different? His agent practically begged him to read the script. Reluctantly, he did, and something clicked. Ross's neurotic sweetness, his hopeless romanticism, his paleontology obsession, it felt real. David flew to Los Angeles, auditioned, and landed the role that would define his career. But even after Friends became a hit, David struggled with fame. By season 4, he was directing episodes, perhaps as a way to maintain creative control and sanity. He's been open about battling the pressures of sudden stardom, telling The Hollywood Reporter in 2016, "I was not equipped for that level of fame. Nobody prepared us." Unlike some castmates who embraced celebrity, David retreated. He didn't leave the show, but he left the Hollywood scene as much as possible, focusing on directing and stage work. When Friends ended, he was one of the first to step completely away from sitcoms, choosing independent films and theater over another series. Matthew Perry, the one fighting private battles. If any cast member's story breaks your heart, it's Matthew Perry's. As Chandler Bing, Matthew delivered some of the most quotable lines in television history. His sarcastic wit and impeccable timing made Chandler the king of one-liners. But behind the jokes, Matthew was fighting a war nobody could see. Throughout Friends' run, Matthew battled addiction to alcohol and prescription painkillers. The struggle began around season 3 and would haunt him for years. He later revealed that his weight fluctuated wildly, depending on what substances he was using. In some seasons, he was alarmingly thin, in others, noticeably heavier. In a 2016 interview, Matthew confessed, "I don't remember 3 years of filming. Somewhere between season 3 and 6, I was a little out of it." The admission was heartbreaking. Here was an actor delivering Emmy-worthy performances while barely holding himself together. There were whispers on set. Cast and crew knew something was wrong, but the show's grueling schedule, 24 episodes per season, left little room for intervention. Matthew checked into rehab multiple times during the series, including a 2-month stay in 1997 that was kept remarkably quiet by NBC and the production team. Did Matthew ever want to leave? Not publicly, but friends close to him have suggested there were moments when continuing felt impossible. The pressure to be funny, to hit marks, to maintain the illusion of Chandler's effortless cool while battling inner demons, it was crushing. Co-star Lisa Kudrow later said, "We didn't know the extent of what Matthew was going through, but we knew he was suffering. We tried to support him however we could." Matthew stuck it out. When Friends ended in 2004, he entered treatment again, beginning a long journey towards sobriety. He's since dedicated his life to helping others struggling with addiction, opening the Perry House, a sober living facility in Malibu. In his 2022 memoir, Matthew wrote candidly about his Friends years, describing them as both the best and most painful period of his life. "I was Chandler. I loved being Chandler, but I was also dying inside." Jennifer Aniston, the one who wanted more. Jennifer Aniston's Rachel Green became a cultural icon. The hair, the fashion, the on-again, off-again romance with Ross. Rachel was the heart of Friends in many ways, and Jennifer's performance elevated the character from spoiled runaway bride to independent woman. But Jennifer had ambitions beyond Central Perk. By season 8, Jennifer was becoming a movie star. Picture Perfect, The Object of My Affection, and eventually The Good Girl showcased her range. She wasn't just Rachel, she was a serious actress, and Hollywood noticed. There were rumors never confirmed, but persistently whispered that Jennifer considered leaving after season 8. The show's producers were reportedly worried enough that they crafted season 9 and 10 storylines to keep her engaged, including the Ross-Rachel reconciliation that fans had demanded for years. In a 2004 interview with Diane Sawyer, Jennifer addressed the speculation carefully. "There were moments I wondered if I should explore other opportunities, but Friends was family. You don't leave family." The truth? Jennifer was offered major film roles that conflicted with the Friends shooting schedule. Unlike movies, television requires a punishing commitment 9 months a year locked into a soundstage. Friends contracts were notoriously strict about outside projects. Jennifer negotiated hard. By the final seasons, she'd secured more flexibility for film work during hiatus. This allowed her to build a movie career alongside Friends, rather than choosing between them. When the show ended, Jennifer was the first to book a major film, the romantic comedy Rumor Has It. She never looked back at television, at least not for another decade. Her post-Friends career proved she'd made the right choice to balance both worlds, though it required extraordinary negotiation skills and leverage that only a show as massive as Friends provided. The contract negotiation that almost destroyed everything. Here's where things get really interesting. The biggest threat to Friends wasn't any single actor leaving, it was all 6 of them walking away simultaneously. After season 2, when Friends became NBC's highest rated show, the cast realized they had leverage. Massive leverage. They were each making $22,500 per episode, decent money, but nothing compared to the hundreds of millions NBC was earning from advertising. So they did something unprecedented in television history. They banded together. Negotiating as a unified group, the 6 demanded equal pay, not tiered salaries based on popularity or screen time equal. If one got a raise, all 6 got the same raise. It was revolutionary. Studios hate this approach because it removes their ability to divide and conquer. NBC balked. Agents warned the cast they were making a dangerous mistake. Individual negotiations would benefit the stars like Jennifer and Courtney Cox, who had more leverage. But the cast stood firm. In a 2004 interview, Matt LeBlanc explained, "We're either all in this together, or we're not." That's what the show is about, these 6 friends. We weren't going to let the network break that. The standoff was tense. Production on season 3 was briefly delayed. Lawyers got involved. NBC threatened. The cast didn't blink. Finally, NBC caved. By season 10, each cast member earned $1 million per episode, an astronomical figure that remains among the highest in television history, and they earned it together. This unity arguably kept the show intact. Had NBC successfully negotiated individually, resentments would have festered, jealousies would have emerged, the ensemble magic would have crumbled. Instead, the equal pay approach reinforced what Friends was always about: 6 people, equal partners, facing life together. The ones who stayed and why it mattered. Not everyone in this story almost left. Some cast members never wavered. Lisa Kudrow, who played the wonderfully weird Phoebe Buffay, has said in multiple interviews that Friends was the role of a lifetime, and she knew it from day one. Despite being arguably the most talented actor in the ensemble, she'd already won acclaim for Mad About You. Lisa never took her Friends role for granted. Matt LeBlanc, the lovable Joey Tribbiani, also remained committed throughout. Though his character's stupidity sometimes frustrated him, he worried Joey became too dumb in later seasons, Matt understood that Joey's heart made him essential. When Friends ended, Matt was the only cast member to immediately return to television with the spin-off Joey, which unfortunately lasted only 2 seasons. Courtney Cox, the group's unofficial den mother, both on-screen and off, was the cast member who most advocated for unity. When contract negotiations got heated, Courtney reportedly mediated, ensuring everyone stayed aligned. Monica Geller's need to take care of everyone? That was pure Courtney. The legacy of staying together. Friends ended in 2004 after 10 seasons by choice. The cast decided collectively that it was time. NBC would have happily renewed for 3 more years, offering obscene amounts of money. But the cast knew something the network didn't. Some stories are perfect because they end. The series finale drew 52.5 million viewers, one of the most watched television episodes in history. And because no one had left prematurely, because all 6 were there in that final moment, it felt complete. Looking back, the near departures, the struggles, the negotiations, they all strengthened Friends. The show survived because 6 people refused to let ego, money, or personal ambition destroy something special. That's the real reason why these actors didn't leave Friends. Not because they were contractually obligated, not because they couldn't find other work, but because they understood what so many of us feel watching the show. These weren't just characters. They were friends. And you don't abandon your friends. What do you think? Were there other behind-the-scenes struggles we missed? Tell us in the comments below. Thanks for watching. To enjoy more exciting videos, click play on the video on your screen. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you get notified when a new video drops.